All right, you guys, super packed show today. The surge of artificial intelligence surveillance connected to the United Healthcare assassin and also the Crapper Hole rioters. And at the end of the show today, I'm going to break down the whole Notre Dame reopening ritual. We're going to backtrack and show you guys what that's all about. So this will be a very detailed show. The rise of AI. This is not good, you guys. This is the setup to the mark. They need to be able to identify every single soul on the planet. They need to be able to link that into your healthcare. And at that point, you will not be able to buy or sell without a mark. This is where all this is headed, and the enemy knows it. We know how all this ends. We don't have to be afraid. But there are a lot of people that are going to take the mark and worship the image of the beast because they're unawares. So look at what we do today as your part that you play in helping people to reach salvation through Jesus Christ. Think of it that way. You know, I know some days we wake up and it's like, what are we doing here? Why are we, what is this all about? Well, we already know that there is a strong delusion. We already know that many people will stay asleep. But guess what? You might be the person that might wake somebody up by showing them the progression of the invasion of our privacy over the last several decades. And they call it peace and security, don't they? Just as the Bible says. This is the justification that they give for what they're doing to us and how they steal our privacy. And hopefully a person can wake up to this because this is what our job is, you guys. The gospel, but people don't know they need the gospel until you show them that we are in the last days. We are very, very close. We're at the doorsteps, and you can tell just by the surge of technology that has happened in the last 3 or 4 decades. Now, are we going to be able to stop it? No, but it's all about who people worship. Revelation is clear. All shall receive the mark, and those that worship the beast will be thrown in the lake of fire. So you could literally be saving someone's life by waking them up to this information because most people are fast asleep. Now, what am I talking about? Why am I ringing the alarm bells here? Well, this is Palantir. It all goes back to Palantir, you guys. It's the all-seeing eye. Some say that Palantir's use of facial recognition technology raises a privacy concern, that many federal agencies don't use the privacy tool that Palantir provides. And part of that is Project Gotham. This is Project Gotham, linked in with Palantir. It's one of Palantir's projects. And here you see all of these satellites monitoring all of us. Do you think that Elon Musk has nothing to do with this? And his satellites aren't being used in some way, shape, or form? Do you really think Skylink is safe from prying eyes if they have software like this? Do you think it's an accident that Elon Musk and Palantir people, the vice president, as well as another one of Trump's cabinet picks, is linked in with Palantir? Are all these accidents? No, this is painting a picture of our future. Now, if you think that this is only, foreign and this isn't happening on our soil, then I probably can't help a person like that. Because guess what? Drones were once only used in foreign situations, and now they're part of most police departments. Okay. Robo-dogs were used only in foreign situations, and now they're part of police departments. Project Gotham. This is coming to a city near you. Make no mistake. Let's look through this website. This is Palantir's website. Your software is the weapons system. Wow. They show the Earth and all of the capabilities of this thing. Decision dominance from space to mud. From space to mud. And sorry that it's kind of slow, but it's orchestrate combat power. I'll put a link to this so you can look at this yourself. But essentially, they're mixing man and machine to to basically dominate the battlefield. AI-driven combat superiority. And they're saying that the reason why they have to develop this is because of the threat, because of competition, because, hey, if we don't do it, China's going to do it, or Russia's going to do it. And of course, we already know who the Bible tells us rules this world. So all these kings are working together to serve one master. And what does the master want? To bring in the end times. Powering the kill chain. I mean, this is crazy stuff, you guys. Crazy. Now, part of this seek and destroy technology is about facial recognition, as I just showed you, because Palantirs actually come under fire for this facial recognition aspect. And guess what's happening now? This whole story about the assassin who took out the United Healthcare, CEO. They're now saying that this is all about facial recognition. Now, we had called this the day this happened. I told you they're going to weaponize this to showcase facial recognition as an acceptable methodology to catch criminals. And here we are. How the New York Police Department is using AI, drones, DNA, and cutting-edge tech in the manhunt for United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson's assassin. Just like we said it was going to happen. Now, let's read through this. But before we do, remember the secret code of 47 that one of you found? Well, one of you found another aspect to it. Remember, Trump won the 47th presidency. United Healthcare is 47 years old. The shooting happened at 47th Street in front of a 47-story tall hotel. Well, one of you found that the shooting actually happened 47 days before Trump's inauguration. Here it is right here. I'll put a link to this as well for you guys. Now let's read about how this is all pivoted to facial recognition. And then I'm going to show you how they used facial recognition to catch the crapper hole people. So this is a thing now. Let's read. Cutting edge technologies, including state-of-the-art camera networks. What? There's camera networks all around us? I'm saying that facetiously, of course. Of course, there are camera networks around us. This is what we've been trying to warn about. We could not allow this to happen, but it's already here. Facial recognition software powered by artificial intelligence are being used by police to hunt for the brazen killer who shot United Healthcare boss Brian Thompson dead in broad daylight on 6th Avenue on Wednesday. There's just a few of the advanced tools, along with drones, DNA testing, and GPS tracking. Wow. That the NYPD has at its disposal. And some of these technologies having already proved invaluable in piecing together the moments before, during, and after Thompson 50 was executed on a city street. Hotel surveillance cameras captured the still-at-large gunman waiting patiently outside New York Hilton Midtown, 54th Street, before he approached his target, CEO of the healthcare giant, who was not accompanied, blah, blah. We already know the story. Let's see what they have to say about all this. Now, facial recognition. Unbelievable. Okay, so let's get to this part here. Oh, here we go. Hotel surveillance cameras captured him. A woman witnessed the incident. Close up, can be seen running for her life. Since then, the police have poured an incredible amount of resources into identifying the assassin and piecing together his movements before the brazen crime. Now, why weren't these things brought to bear when they were looking for Gabby Petito, for instance? Or some of these other people who apparently went missing and they don't find them till like months and months and months later. Where were all the cameras then? And this is what leads me to believe that this is something different. Let's keep reading here. So far, the network of surveillance cameras operated by both the NYPD and private businesses has uncovered a picture of the smiling suspect at this hotel. Other footage showed the suspect in his partially hidden face inside a Starbucks near the crime scene, which he visited minutes before the shooting. Now, why would this guy go to a Starbucks, leave his DNA, and throw it in a trash can right next to the shooting, knowing that that was the first place that they were going to look. There's something not right here. So, what other technology of facial recognition they used? The NYPD has a dedicated unit known as the Facial Identification Section, which uses software to compare images from a crime scene with a database of known individuals, such as mugshots, pistol permit images. There you go. When you get your pistol permit, your image gets looked at and compared. And what if there's a false identification? It also says gang member photos, and they probably use your real ID as well. They won't list that here because they don't want people to know that part. While facial recognition technology has come a long way in recent years, it's not like in the movies. Of course it is. The man was wearing a mask, which could hinder facial recognition software because it recognizes points in the face and measures the distance between them. The technology is there and fine in a controlled environment like a Las Vegas casino, but it's far less effective on footage shot on a street or low light or bad weather. Pictures have emerged of the man who police claim is a killer, smiling after blah, blah, blah. Okay, so do you see the problem here? Do you see the problem? They're using this technology. And as the technology of the cameras and how much they can pick up increases, it will become more and more and more accurate. Now, many of you are probably saying, Casey, what's the big deal? Don't you want to catch a criminal? That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about invasion of privacy. When you walk out of your house, your face is picked up by hundreds of cameras. And they give us these extreme situations of, a murder in broad daylight to justify it. But think about situations that aren't so cut and dry, right? Like enemy of the state. What if they want to frame somebody with something? They'll just say that's your picture. We can't tell the difference between artificial intelligence anymore. It all looks the same. It looks real. Or what about when some unfair edict gets thrown down onto us? Like you will get an injection. And some of us are going to be trying to evade. Well, you can't evade in this situation because we've allowed our privacy to be infringed upon. Look this. They even have GPS tracking, ballistics, DNA testing. Law enforcement sources previously said the masked gunman used a silencer. The gunman's weapon jammed during the shooting, but the killer swiftly rectified the issue and continued firing as the CEO tried to crawl away. His ability to clear the jam is about as good as it gets. To have that clarity under pressure means he kept a cool head. He's definitely done some training at a shooting range, at the very least. Then he ran away on an electric bike, and they caught him on surveillance camera there. And I'm trying to get to the GPS tracking part. They pulled a water bottle and a protein bar wrapper from the trash can. So this guy literally just left his DNA there. Do you see how they're basically placing all these elements in the story to justify the use of these elements for future investigations? What killer would be stupid enough to leave their DNA on a wrapper and a bottle, knowing that each of these cameras was going to track his progression of his escape and before he even got there? So, look, even drones, they got the whole... Now, I'm not going to read this whole article, but they're essentially bringing to bear every tool they have so that they can basically justify this, right? For the rest of us. And that's the goal of these stories. Now, what else is going on? The acceptance of facial recognition. This is the setup going into Trump's presidency, because all of these presidents work together. And so this is what this ritual was all about, in my opinion. Now, at this point, they're saying that they have found the shooter, or they know who he is. They've identified him. They had this guy on, let me see what this article says. I think they say 200 cameras they had this guy on. I think this is the article here. Let's see here. They had him on like 200 cameras. So that gives you an idea of our world now. Now, of course, this was New York, and there's cameras everywhere, but you can imagine. But anyway, they found out who this guy is, but they're not telling the public yet because they're saying it could ruin the investigation. So they're just saying, we know who he is. It's only a matter of time before we pick this guy up. So hopefully this helps you guys understand what's really going on here with this situation. The whole situation might not even be real. It could be fake. I mean, the CEO's probably really dead, but they probably took him out for other reasons, and they could have weaponized this whole thing to meet their other agendas, right? Kill two birds with one stone. And if you don't think these kinds of things aren't talked about by the controllers, then I can't help you, because this is what they do. Now, how does this connect to Trump, who's not even president yet? Well, he's president, but he hasn't been inaugurated. Well, last week we talked about Trump's robot dogs. Remember the dog that he was basically patrolling around Mar-a-Lago? And I told you that this was now setting the precedent for the shape of things to come. Like, there's a reason why he did that, and why he did it now after he won the presidency. That this was a sign of our future. Predictive programming to set the tone for his Palantir all-seeing eye administration, which is what we're going to call it. He was the first vaccine president, and now he's going to be the first all-seeing eye president, because he's now got the technology within his own cabinet, right? And some of you in the comments realized that these very same robot dogs were probably being used at the border, is what you thought. So I looked into that. I was like, I wonder if they're using these robot dogs at the border, like to field test them, So I found a couple articles on that, and apparently it's a thing. This is February 1st, 2022, a couple years ago. Feature article, robot dogs take another step towards deployment at the border. American Southwest is a region blended with harsh landscape, temperature extremes, and various other non-environmental threats. They can create dangerous obstacles for those who patrol the border. S&T has a deep understanding of CBP, Customs and Border Protection, personnel, technology needs in the field, in its role in the research development arm of the blah, blah, blah. So they have to see, this is how they justify it. They do the setup first, right? Futuristic twist, man's best friend. Because of the inhospitability of the border, they're saying they need robo-dogs. And here's one here. Look, it's all even in the colors of the sandy desert, so it blends in. So this was basically something they were proposing. And there's another article. This one dated February 19th, shortly after the other one. This might be the same story, different outlet, because it's got some of the same pictures. Robot dogs patrolling the U.S.-Mexico border. But these images are real, it says. The Department of Homeland Security recently released them as it revealed details about how it's testing the technology. So they're testing it now. They call this a force multiplier. Yeah, of course it is. It's robotic technology against humans, right? There should be laws in place, amendments to the Constitution, that technology should never be used to police our own people, ever. But they won't put that in place because their intention is to eventually give us a Terminator scenario. That's what all this is leading to. Now, in 5 or 10 years, you'll realize this, but it will be too late. We're the ones building these robot dogs. We're building our own prison because we're buying the lie. We're accepting the lie that this will never be used on us. It's only for foreigners. It's only for immigrants. Right? Now, let's get into the Jan 6 riot. Let me check in with you guys. I've been presenting for a while. Next, I'm going to show you how Trump actually has talked about pardoning some of the Jan 6 rioters, right? We're going to call them the crapper hole crew. Okay? Just because you can't really say. Remember, right after the crapper hole, I caught like 2 strikes for simply talking about the event. So we can't really say it anymore. All we have to say is the crapper hole, right? Which is essentially what it is, a giant toilet, a cesspool, a swamp. So Trump has talked about pardoning some of the crapper hole rioters. And some is a loaded word because I looked it up. And there are 1,250 total individuals that have been put in jail from the crapper hole. So pardoning some could mean 25 people. And that might sound like a lot, but it's nothing. You got to ask yourself, whoever he does pardon, were those provocateurs, were those CIA or FBI people that were put in there who aren't even probably really in jail, but they have to pretend like they are, right? To make sure they maintain their cover. And then they'll just say, oh, they've been forgiven, they've been pardoned. So now they just pretend to leave jail, right? And continue on doing undercover honey traps for American people. Now, if you don't think this is all real, look what happened after Blind 11. This is exactly what they did. They pretended to be terrorists. They drew people in, made them angry, then provided money and funds and said, all you have to do is pull the trigger. And then they went and arrested all of them. This is how they do it. Why wouldn't they do it domestically here? For anyone that they believe would even think about challenging their election that they say was free and fair. Right? So now let's dig into this, you guys. Let's see where to go. Okay, so here's Trump saying he's going to pardon the rioters, right? Some of the rioters. And I looked this up. I went straight to the government website, Capitol breach cases. And here they list them, 1,243 people, you guys. That's a lot of people that they say went into the crapper hole. Now, a lot of these people have spent the better part of the last 3 years at least in prison, which is already far too long. In other words, the damage has already been done. And the message received. The message is, if you oppose an election in any way, shape, or form with any kind of protest, you're in danger of going to prison. Because this guy I'm going to show you next, the latest arrest, all he did was shove a cop and go through the doors. And they picked him up. And I'm going to show you some really crazy stuff about how they picked this guy up, how they identified him. I'm going to show you the affidavit, the indictment, whatever you want to call it. Because I thought to myself, did 1,250 people actually throw a punch or damage property? No, most of these people simply walked through the door. Now, logic tells us, how in the heck did they find all these people? Some kind of software must have been employed to organize all this information. So let's take a look at this most recent arrest, this Kenneth guy. We'll just call him Kenneth. And when you click on his indictment, look what they show here. I was no part of this. I'm not in any way, shape, or form. I told people not to go to this, the crapper hole. But very few listened. But look at this. This is his indictment. And this is crazy. They said they were able to identify this guy from a Parler account. Now, I looked into it in Parler. Look at, they've got his face circled here. I looked into it in Parler. Does not require you to put your face to open a Parler account. Now, Parler has since been closed down because it's already served its purpose, right? It was a place for all these people to plan what they were going to do. And then the FBI and the CIA just sit there and watch the accounts and find everybody who uploaded a picture of themselves. And then they matched it with the people that showed up. Super simple. It's like they did their job for them. Now, I warn people about these offshoot social media sites because there's no cover. You're basically become low-hanging fruit. You go to these sites, you think it's a freedom site, but really it's a prison site because you're out there in the open and then you do their work for them. They don't have to parse through and search through accounts like they do on YouTube to see who's doing what. Many of you will remember the list that came out like 6 or 7 years ago. There are a bunch of YouTube channels that they had put on a list. Remember that? To try to scare people from talking. And they called some of these sites, some of these YouTube channels, far right extremists, right? And this is why I told you guys you should never, ever advocate for violence in any way, shape, or form. That's low-hanging fruit to these controllers. They just simply scoop you up. They'll say a threat was made. You can't do that. This is a battle of the minds, is what this is. Until you convince people of the lies of the right-left paradigm, they're going to just continue to be part of the problem and prop up this system of sinking sand. You don't have to employ violence. You don't have to storm a building. You don't have to do any of this. So, for the record, I'm not advocating for these people. I'm simply saying that I'm showing you how they caught these people. They tracked this guy's face, and then they literally, the first part of the identification part of this indictment basically says, this is how they ID'd him from his Parler account. Then they go on to match his face. Here's his Parler account, and the dummy, puts his picture on here. Now, again, it's not required to put your picture in Parler. Why would this guy put his picture on here? Well, there's multiple reasons why someone might do this without it being directly required by the site, right? And, they put honey traps and provocateurs. They do all kinds of weird stuff to draw these people into these situations, right? They could have had some honey trap lady on here going, oh, I wonder what you look like. And then he puts his big picture of his mug on here. In fact, he showed up with a lady who they've got her face blacked out. She could be a honey trap. Here she is right here. This blonde lady here. Oh, come to the crapper hole with me. And now this guy's in jail. And they've got her listed as one of the people that identified this guy. Now, what did this guy do? Casey, maybe he belongs in jail. He put his arm on an officer. They literally say in here, he used his shoulder and he leaned into the officer and he pushed and leaned. And here you see his shoulder, no punches thrown, nothing. And for that, a 20-page indictment with detailed photographs of literally every single move this guy made from the time he walked down this, Independence Avenue to, they've got the whole thing. The whole thing. Unbelievable. And I'll put a link to this for you guys. Some of you are super sleuths and you like to dig into this stuff. But his crime was going into the building, essentially. Wow. Now, let's backtrack. Because Parler is how they initially ID'd this guy. And this is important, you guys, because people on Parler thought they were safe, didn't they? So I looked it up. And again, very little information is required when you signed up for a Parler account. And so what did they do? Well, the only other way that they were likely able to match this guy's face to his account must have been through facial recognition. Now, they don't name that in the indictment here, but guess what I found? Because got to show proof of all this, right? They literally admit in this article that they used, let's just read the title. How Tech Automated the Crapper Hole Investigations. 3 years on databases, non-tipster are generating more criminal charges. Let's read this, you guys. This is very important because this gives you a snapshot into what you're now up against. Okay. This is why you don't take the bait. They will find you. And they proved it with the crapper hole. All right. So this is not conjecture. This is what they did to find the people from this IEEE article here. Let's read it. Josh Coker's Facebook page doesn't show any MAGA memes or Trump quotes. He wasn't live streaming on Jan 6, and no one ever stepped forward to identify him as one of the mob that stormed the U.S. Capitol that day. But on the 10th of October last year, Department of Justice charged him, who lives in Oregon, Ohio, with 5 counts connected to the failed insurrection. FBI was able to identify Coker and gather information about his actions using only location data. Using only location data from his phone and image recognition technologies. Wow. According to the charging document, agents did not even interview him before filing a criminal complaint. So the guy didn't even know what was happening. He just gets a criminal complaint. As the crapper hole investigations move into their fourth year, an IEE spectrum analysis of court filings suggests that they are evolving from sprawling, labor-intensive efforts touching on many aspects of suspects' lives to something far more streamlined and digital. Some, like Coker's, have been even reached the point of requiring little human input at all. Skynet is here. They have deployed artificial intelligence to fight crime now. Let's keep reading. Automated enforcement of lesser infractions is nothing new. Wow. Automated enforcement of lesser infractions. Think about a police state where everything you do is monitored and you just get tickets in the mail for jaywalking. Oh, we have your face on here jaywalking, and we have, who's going to fight that? You can't fight it. You just pay the ticket. Is this the world we want to live in? Is this the Trump world we want? Is this the Biden, Kamala Harris world we want? No. Think neighborhood speed cameras, it says. However, experts say that its use for serious felony charges could set a dangerous precedent for the U.S. justice system, raising questions about bias, misidentification, and the rise of the surveillance state. The reality now is, with little effort, police can sit at their desks and search the vast stores of data we leave behind. Remember, I was talking specifically about this? I said, you guys, law enforcement will now be just them looking at data, which will dramatically increase their ability to find you, to send you a ticket with very little work on their end. And remember, I told you, make the police do their job. A computer shouldn't be policing us. Remember, we had all these discussions, and then here it is. I say it right here in this article that came out at the beginning of this year. Let's keep reading here. This is important. The crapper hole cases are the test subjects for an experiment of digital surveillance that will impact us all. Few legal protections stand in the way. Why? Because of the Sedition Act. There's no legal protections for these people. Now, here's what Trump should have done. He's supposed to be a conservative, right? If I was him, right after this happened, I would have started a legal defense fund for these people. And I would have said, this is not the world we want to live in. And I would have called out all of this artificial intelligence technology about how unfair it was. And I would have made a vow to the American people that we are going to backtrack on this kind of use of surveillance. And guess what? People would have listened to him. That was his opportunity. And we could have helped some of these people. But my thing is, I don't think he wants to help these people. I think the whole thing was a trap. Now let's keep reading here. The mob that attacked the crapper hole 3 years ago injured 138 police officers. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Over a year ago, Spectrum began analyzing data from hundreds of criminal indictments to examine the role technology played in tracking down those responsible. At that point, the key technology for identifying the rioters appeared to be social media, which is what we just said about Parler. Remember, thousands of Facebook and Twitter feeds provide a rich load of data for official investigations to mine. And many of the 300,000 tips that the FBI received mentioned social media. Wow. Social networks were cited in about 2/3 of the investigations. Facebook appeared in almost half of all cases, and almost every major social media app was mentioned at least once. So what do you think happened? Well, a lot of this is public. They didn't have to get permission from the social media sites, but you can imagine that there was probably some subpoenas to the social media sites to get even more information, like to drill down. Like if someone didn't leave a picture on their account, they could simply ask for the email address and see, what's attached to that, what personal information is attached to the email address. So they have ways around this. And do you think the social media sites are going to, say, oh, no, that's private information? Of course they're not. They were probably threatened by the controllers. Oh, this is a sedition charge, so you have to give us this information. And they just gave it to them. Wow. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing because I want to get into this Notre Dame thing. This is insane, you guys. Insane. Now, what else is going on too before we get into Notre Dame? Okay, we'll get into that later. Okay, so what is going on with all this? Well, this is our future, right? This was a trap from the beginning. Perfect excuse to use artificial intelligence, facial recognition. Exactly what we said was going to happen is now happening, right? And they're saying we have to do this to catch criminals. Now, some of you are like, Casey, I don't plan on doing anything wrong. Where I care if they use this technology. I'm a law-abiding citizen. Well, you're a law-abiding citizen up until the point where you're doing something that you fundamentally and morally think is okay to do, like not get injected with something or collect rainwater. If your water bill is $300 a month in California, you want to collect a little rainwater. You don't want some camera on you just because you're collecting rainwater to water your plants. You don't want some fine in the mail, do you? I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people just want to go by unfair laws. I don't think you do, because we all realize that a lot of these laws are arbitrary. They don't even ask your true opinion about the law. They just make the law. They don't ask your opinion. How many times have we seen this, you guys, where they make these laws that are not even popular? So, is this what we want? This is becoming a totalitarian regime. This is no different than Assad. By the way, what's the difference between a monarchy and a dictatorship? Is there any difference at all? Why do we allow kings and queens and family bloodlines to rule and people kissing their rings? But then all of a sudden, this person's a dictator. What's the difference? We live in clown world, don't we? Now, to address your, anyone who thinks that I'm crazy. Oh, we don't do anything wrong, Casey. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? We need law and order. This is a good thing. Well, that's what the people that went to the crapper hole thought too, didn't they? They thought, hey, we're good. We're not doing anything wrong. We're just protesting. We're not doing anything compared to what BLM and Antifa did, burning down cities. We're just here. We don't have guns. All we have is signs. We just want to go into a public building. And now look, that's what they thought too. Oh, this is just a peaceful protest. And now here we are. And so when they start passing edicts that say you have to get an injection, you guys, what do you think they're waiting for? They're waiting to get the surveillance state in order before they can make laws that you get injected with something. Okay. They can't do it now. And they couldn't do it during COVID. They couldn't actually pass a law to do it because they didn't have complete power and control yet. But once they have complete power and control and Skynet is in place and ready to deploy, and the robot dogs and everything else, that's when they'll be able to make these unfair edicts, because then there won't be any escape. And policing will be automatic. Policing will be easier than ever. No more patrols, no more nothing. Send out the robot dogs to patrol, and they can look through the camera of the robot dog as it's running down the street while your children are playing. Wow. Oh, but Trump's going to fix it all. No, Trump's part of the problem. Palantir. Rule of law. Why do you think he keeps saying this over and over again? Now, let's get in a couple more stories before we get into Notre Dame. As we told you guys, costs are about to go up on things that you buy. And I told you guys, now is probably a good time to get some essentials that you might need, especially products. If there's anything you buy on Amazon or at Walmart, 80% of those products are from China. So those will go up with the tariffs that Trump is talking about. And what it will feel like to you and me is another round of inflation. Inflation is not going away if Trump follows through with his tariff plan. Now, at this point, he's not even denying it. It's so funny because in the beginning, the Trump supporters are like, Casey, you're just barking up the wrong tree. It's not going to raise our prices. It's going to make everything better because Trump said. Well, now he's backing the car out of the garage. Trump says he can't guarantee tariffs won't raise U.S. prices. Now, this is no big deal for him. He's a billionaire. They don't care. They can't consume enough stuff to even make a difference about all this, right? And they're the ones that are getting the immediate benefit from the raised tariffs, because those tariffs go right into the government pile. When are they going to come to us? They might not ever come to us. It might just make the government even more rich. Okay? Unless they're going to start cutting us checks for the money that, from these tariffs. If they say, okay, the tariffs are going to go right back in the American people's pockets. Now, every month, you guys are going to get a $500 a month check from these tariffs that we're placing on these other countries. You think that's going to happen? Of course it's not. All we're going to see is raised prices. And we're going to see a promise of a new America, because the tariffs are going to make the U.S. companies, it's going to make us want to grow companies. Now, how long is that going to take? How long is that going to take until we see money back in our pockets? Well, they don't tell us how long it's going to take. Now, our plan is much more aggressive than Trump's. Much more conservative and much further right than Trump. Our plan is to cut off all trade with China and Mexico. Send a clear message. And that would spark internal growth to a magnitude you've never seen before inside of America's borders. We make all the same products. We set up a task force. We give a tax rebate for these companies to start making all the stuff that we're importing. And guess what? You create millions, tens of millions of jobs. You nullify all these trade agreements that punish U.S. Americans and offshore all of the jobs. That's what you do, right? You send a message. You create jobs immediately. Why won't he do this? Well, because there's corporations that are offshoring that are probably giving kickbacks to our government. So the corruption still keeps going. They're not going to pull all the trade from China and Mexico, because that's not within the interests of the rich and the greedy, right? It's within our interests. We're not asking to receive Chinese products, are we? Those are given to us by the controllers. I think 99% of people would agree that it would be much better if we made all of our own stuff and weren't dependent on any of these countries. Now, it'd be different. Let's say trade with Europe, okay? Europe is, the closest thing we have to being in line with Western values, right? I think most people would be like, you know what? We should trade with people that have our same interests. But why are we trading with totalitarian states, dictators, fentanyl pushers, and human traffickers? Why are we doing that? Why are we doing that? We shouldn't be, right? I mean, what reality are we in where we wake up and people justify this? So, Trump is now admitting that costs could go up when he raises tariffs. So, welcome to 2025. It's going to be a tough year, but people are still going to be addicted to the hopium. They're just so glad that Kamala Harris didn't win. But we're going to have worse inflation than we've ever seen. Now, mark my words, I would go buy a 12-pack of eggs or something. Well, no, eggs isn't a good example because those are domestic. I would keep a very close eye on things that you buy on the 31st of December or just before the inauguration, and then take note of how much that costs, and you will see real inflation. And that is insane to me that people are just applauding that as some kind of strategic move against China when it's going to mess all of us up. Now, before we get into Notre Dame, because I promised you guys I'd get into it, there's just so much to cover. I told you this was going to be a power-packed show today. Well, look at this. Rabies is back in the news. This teacher died after she found a bat on the floor in her classroom, which is already suspect because bats don't typically, unless the cleaning people from the night before left the door open and the bat flew in maybe to eat some, eat some insects that were attracted to the lights. I mean, that's the only scenario I can think of. But it's almost as like the bat was placed there. And the bat maybe tried to get out, it hit the window, and got knocked out a little bit. And maybe she went to go pick it up. And it says she went to pick it up and she took it outside. Now, why anybody in their right mind would handle a bat with bare hands makes absolutely no sense to me. And this is why you have to wear protection and you have to listen to alternative media. Had this lady been following our channel, she wouldn't have picked up this bat with her bare hands, knowing all of the programming we've seen going all the way back to COVID, which was first blamed on a bat, and Batman and all this other crazy programming. You get a towel or something. Anyway, she touched the mere touch of this bat. She didn't even feel the bite. And she got rabies. Wow. Let's read a little bit of this article, and we'll get into Notre Dame. A friend of Leah Senning, the California middle school teacher who died weeks after being bitten by a bat in her classroom, recalls visiting her in the hospital shortly before her death. To see her in that state was just devastating. So she basically turned into a zombie. That's what rabies symptoms look like. They probably gave her some kind of a, sedative to calm everything. But this is one of the most painful things you can go through. And they say that once you start developing symptoms of rabies, it's already too late. They basically say anytime you come in proximity to a bat, even if you, in any way, shape, or form, or even if there's a bat inside of your house, even though you didn't touch it, and you were woke up to it, they say you should just assume that you've been bitten and assume you have rabies. And they say the only hope you have is to immediately go and get whatever treatment that they have. Otherwise, once the symptoms start, you're done. And let's read about what happened here. And our teacher, who taught at Bryant Middle School in Dos Palos, encountered a bat in October on the floor of her classroom early in the morning before her students arrived. Oh my gosh, this was right around Halloween too. She scooped it up and took it outside. I guess it bit her, or maybe she thought it scratched her or something, and then it took off. It flew away and she didn't think anything of it. So she got it out of the classroom and then she went about her day. Then it says here, she initially didn't exhibit any symptoms. However, she became ill and it was admitted to the hospital on Monday, November 18th. So it didn't take long. 4 days later, she was dead, says the Fresno Bee. Unbelievable. So this is the shape of things to come. I believe part of the initial, disclosure of the coming, some kind of serious zombie condition, a new pandemic, because there's no accident that this bat thing was connected back to COVID and now is also moving forward with these stories. Now, let me check in with you guys. We'll get into the Notre Dame ritual. I'm going to break that down, tell you exactly what that's about. Let's let this chat catch up because I want to say hello to you guys. There's Roy, Sheldon, Hardy Harhar, Jess, Solemn Peace, Mr. E, Five Little Stones, Celia, Smooth Criminal, Crystal, Cat I Am, R. Jones, Dude, what the heck? D Nice. Okay, now it's going too fast. All right. So, as you all heard, Notre Dame just reopened and Trump was sitting literally next to the Bidens. There was, all of a sudden, magically, they stopped making fun of each other. Why do you think that is? Now, they chose the reopening date of Notre Dame Cathedral to fall on Pearl Harbor Day, which is also Mother Mary Immaculate Conception Day. Now, I'm going to tell you what all that means. Because this day, the Pearl in the harbor, we just did a video on this, didn't we? We said if Christ was conceived on that date, you count 40 weeks, and that lands on 9/11 the following year. This was part of the justification that we had for Christ possibly being born on 9/11, and that 9/11 and the Twin Towers was a whole ritual of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. 2 towers were the 2 thieves at his side, and he was building 7 in the middle. 7 is kind of Christ's number, isn't it? So this Notre Dame ritual was all about the rebirth of humanity under the blue bloods, not under Christ. And this is why the Notre Dame Cathedral resembles two towers, just like the 9/11 event. And this is why they had the ritual of the reopening on Mary Mother Conception Day. Now, it fell on Pearl Harbor, and then there was like a two-part thing. So part of it happened on the December 7th, and part of it happened on the 8th. And on the 8th is when Trump showed up with the Bidens. Now, Joe Biden wasn't there, but his wife and daughter, I guess, were there. Now, never, ever, ever forget this image that we published just hours after the fire, showing the fall of the cathedral in an animation, iPad Go 2, that released years before the event. Now, our poor video sits at 5,000 views. But everyone that copied our video, they literally copied this exact image here. Their videos are sitting at millions of views. And the only reason why I say that to you is because this shows you that I'm here for the right reasons. Our work is often stolen and goes viral on other channels, but never goes viral here. It's crushing censorship. And most people won't be able to handle that. They would just simply give up. They would get so wrapped up in their ego. They would say, you know what? Why am I doing this work if everyone else is stealing it and their channels are reaching more people and ours aren't? But I've learned that I'm here for the right reasons. So I'm not going to be sad about that. But I can call it out. This is the image. Many of you have seen it. Let me play this. But you never knew where it came from until today. Now, it's got a music soundtrack on the back of it, but look at the side-by-side here, and I'm going to play this through a couple times. On the right, 2012. On the left, when the cathedral fell down. And as you can see, it's some kind of supernatural manifestation of events that had not happened yet. Look at this. A church. It's got the church. It's got the cross there. This is the church. It is a church. It's on fire. The very nature of the falling of the spire, almost matching exactly. And yet these events were 10 years apart. On the right, the animation came out in 2012. And on the left, 2019. So, wow, right? Now, what else was going on with this? Well, shortly after this fire, they found vampires under the floor of the cathedral. Remember that? And I told you they were going to find vampires when they found these caskets. Now, how did we know they were vampires? Well, because they were sealed in lead. And we did a video before the caskets were ever opened. All we knew was that they were sealed in lead. They didn't know what the contents were. And I said, you guys, there's probably vampires in there. How do I know? Well, sealing something in lead is essentially what the vampires used to be buried as. And the people back in antiquity thought that by doing this, when you bury them in lead, that it would trap the spirits so they could not reanimate at night and eat people or drink their blood. So this is what they did. And then we found that the entire royal family was using lead caskets. The Queen of England, Diana, they were all put in lead caskets, and no one could figure out why. They're like, why are they burying them in lead caskets? And we're like, these are supposed to be royalty. They're supposed to have, maybe a gold-laden casket or silver or something like that. But instead, they were buried in lead, which is a very cheap metal. You can look all this up for yourself. The royal family buried in lead caskets. And so we're like, okay, there's something to this. Why are they burying them in caskets that in vampire lore were used to bury vampires, the blue bloods? And then later that year, Prince Charles admitted that he was from the bloodline of Dracula and was bragging about it. Now he's king, of course. So now you guys know we're not making all this up. There's continuity of this information. It's not just a free-for-all on this channel. We're trying to piece together all this stuff. And then lo and behold, like a year later, because they didn't open these caskets for like 6 months or a year, if my memory serves me correctly. And then finally, what did they find when they opened these caskets? Even though we already said we already knew what was in the caskets. What did they find when they finally opened the caskets? Let's see who gets the answer. A marathon today, isn't it? I'm trying to talk a little bit faster so you guys don't have to put me on 1.5 speed. But if you feel like I'm talking too slow, just go into the frame of the video and put me on 1.5 speed. And that will help you get through some of these videos faster. I've also tried to reduce the number of ads that you guys are having to deal with. So there's probably at most 5 ads during the show. Okay, if you watch it after the live show. If you watch the show live, then you won't have to see any ads because I've removed those. But understand that one of the only ways I support myself is through the ads. That way I don't have to get on here and ask you guys for money, right? Which I almost never do. So a couple of ads, just skip through them if you need to, and that helps support the channel. So what did they find? Elongated skulls, suggesting that these beings inside these caskets were not completely human. Now, of course, they wrote this off and they said, oh, the skulls, it was binding. They used to bind the skulls. Really? So we have skull binding all around the world in all these different cultures in Mesoamerica, now in Europe. So all these people were of the same religion or belief system? Really? No, of course not. If they're finding skulls that are bound, they say are bound in Peru and all these places and in England, then these are a bloodline. And they're trying to cover it up and hide it. But unfortunately, people just keep believing the official stories instead of piecing together these things for themselves and using critical thinking. So we were right, weren't we? What was in those caskets was not normal, was not human. So, all right, I'm in the chat, you guys. We can hang out for a little bit. Unreal. So now we're here with this ritual, the Twin Towers into one, the combining of red and blue. This is why the Bidens and Trump were there together, mixing it all together. Now it's a one world order. They're celebrating it over the grave of the blue bloods, elongated skulls beneath their feet. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So, yes, and when they come for the unjabbed, there will be no resistance, right? There will be no resistance because the surveillance state will be in full form. Now, for those of you living in New York, good luck. Because guess what? They've already told you that they can find you. And guess what? Never forget how they treated you during the pandemic. They were shutting down bars. They were going after people. They were writing fines for people that weren't wearing masks. Well, now they can do all that very, very easily with the surveillance state. All they got to do is turn it on. All they have to do is turn it on. All right, you guys. Let's see what's going on in the chat here. Good morning. Huh. Yes, thanks, Tonette. Yeah, Shaking My Head Productions always gives the credit for the work. Yeah, if you type in Notre Dame Cathedral iPet Goat, you'll see videos with millions of views of the one they stole from our channel. Well, I don't call it stealing. I'm glad the word got out, but now you see the frustration. We try, we get up every day, we put in the effort, and then we got a glass ceiling over our head. So, but we'll keep on keeping on, won't we? All right. Wish I could have known what they were saying in the ceremony, says Christy. Wow, there's a YouTuber that says they're a descendant of Dracula. Wow. And the stories are not true about him. You know, it's crazy, Celia, is gosh, right when I first started my channel, I was decoding Dracula. And I had someone that same exact thing came onto the channel and were like, their name was Vlad, if I remember correctly, and their thumbnail was a picture of Dracula, and they were telling me the same exact thing. Oh, nothing to see here. He was just Vlad the Impaler. There's none of the stories are true. Blah 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 blah. Right. So it sounds like there's a movement afoot to sanitize, let's say, the whole vampire story. So Stephanie says, I came in late. I put on 2 times speed. That's even too fast for me. I watch most of my content at like at least 1.25 speed for anything that I watch. I don't have a lot of time to watch other content, but when I do, I usually put it at 1.25. I don't think it's that. Thanks for that. In not of saying I should have millions of subs. I don't think that it's most Americans that don't care. I think it's targeted censorship because you see some of our work go viral. You know, like I said, this Notre Dame Cathedral has millions of views, so obviously it's interesting to people, but they won't let it go viral on my channel so that more people come and see the rest of the work and they can have their eyes open. You see, that's the problem. You see other videos in the truth community going viral, but just not on our channel. It's weird. I thought about starting over. I thought maybe I'll have all of you guys subscribe to a new channel. We'll just start over and see what the algorithms do with that, you know. But I'm just trying not to worry about it too much these days. I'm just going to keep doing what the Lord tells me to do and keep exposing all this stuff. The hypocrisy, the ineffectiveness of our government to change anything. And then who keeps being the butt of the joke? It's all of us. Working people trying to get through life, and our lives change while these people continue to get richer. And then they justify it by just telling us all this nonsense. So, yes, God is in control of everything. Thanks, daughter Zion. Yes, and that's what he helped me realize after this last brain break that I went through. I literally was having a really tough time, you guys. I don't think anyone really understands. I was done. I was literally done. I woke up one day and I was like, I've been doing this for 11, almost 12 years, and I'm just done. And then God is like, nope, you made a promise to me. You got to get back on the horse. You have to finish this out strong. And here I am. So he said, the people that need you now are the people that are already on the channel. You're not going to find a bunch of new people because this is it. And these people need you. They need you so they can stay strong because of what's coming. And he gave me a new direction to go to, which was this whole surveillance state. This is top center. No one's paying attention to it anymore. You know, there was a time where people did care about the surveillance state, but now with the rise of technology, it's almost like people are just giving into it. You know, if you talk to people outside of our group of truth people, they will tell you that they think that artificial intelligence is cool and fun and the wave of the future. There are people investing in it. That's bad. That's bad, you guys. It's bad. But they'll see. They'll see. You're going to get ticketed and fined to death. You're going to basically walk to your mailbox or get an email. They won't even waste the paper. They'll just send you an email from the such and such county police department. Our artificial intelligence has detected that your electricity use has gone, far surpast your normal usage. We suspect that under this kind of profile that you may be growing some illegal plants. So we're going to fine you for that. Or we got you on facial recognition camera, jaywalking across such and such avenue. They'll send you a picture of yourself. That's a $150 fine. And then we're going to come to an age where you don't even see police officers patrolling anymore. You're just going to get ticketed in the mail. And at that point, you're going to finally wake up and see it. You're going to be like, oh, this is what Casey was talking about. Because they'll tell you at any given time, oh, thanks, Busby. Thanks for the super chat. Appreciate that. They even admit that at any given time, every single day, you're breaking the law. You just don't even realize it. There are laws and ordinances in place that you don't even realize you're breaking. Just leaving your house. or even online laws you could be breaking that you don't even realize. Well, now all that's going to be controlled by a computer. And this is how they're going to come after people's properties. Because once you can't pay those fines or you object to the fines, they'll simply put a lien on your property. That's how they're going to go through and take people's property, with unfair fines. Especially those of us who don't agree with their system, who are trying to, avoid and evade, right? We'll be the first people they come after. And they'll just target you, ticket you, and fine you until you've lost all your property or until you comply. And the people that'll be left alone are the people that simply go along with the messaging, who still believe elections are real and all that stuff. Those people, they'll go through life, sail through life very easily. Pay all your taxes, obey all the rules, get your super injections and, and all these things. Those people will sail through life, and it'll be us who are going to be targeted. Okay. Now, fortunately, we're not going to have to go through this for very long, because this is the critical time, hard to deal with. This is the time that the Bible talked about. Now, I know that some of you believe that you'll be raptured away from this time. Like, I'm not going to debate that. I don't know the future. I don't particularly believe in a rapture. I think when Jesus comes back, he's coming back at the end of time. But regardless of what you think, if you believe in rapture or you don't, there will be a time where some of us are going to have to go through some hard stuff, especially as Christians. Okay, it's already happening. Look what happened to the crapper hole people. Do you think that a bunch of those people weren't Christians? Of course they were Christians. They thought they were doing the right thing, and they got into a trap. They walked right into a trap, and they probably feel like this is the Great Tribulation. They probably feel like this is the time of prosecution of Christians. At least a lot of them do. They feel like no one's speaking up for them. Trump's not speaking up for them. We've been the only ones speaking up for these people about how they got led into a trap. So it's because we understand what Christian prosecution is. Now, of course, these people have it. I'm sure there's much worse stuff going on in the world to Christians. I'm not trying to, elevate these people as something too special, but I can tell you that at least they had the cojones to do something or think that they were doing something. That says something, thinking you're doing the right thing, even if you are walking into a trap. At least they thought they were doing the right thing, which is a lot more than a lot of us have done. We're on here talking about stuff. But anyway, wow. All right, guys, I'm going to pop off of here. Not sure if we have anything set up for tomorrow, but that could change. I love each and every one of you. I'll put links to all this. Glad you guys showed up. Have a great rest of your day. Much love.